Whoa, what do you know? We're back on the ching chong ding dong shabalabla ding dong version of the game. Pretty much blown up. Look at this. 2 trillion. That's a trillion. That's trillion in Mexican. Babillion fucking downloads. But fuck that. You know what it is. We out here. Okay, yeah, take me to the tournament, baby. That's right. The World Tournament. Something that I haven't seen on Global in a while. It says you are cordially invited to attend the World Tournament. Thank you. That's right, baby. I can fucking speak and read Peruvian, my nigga. I am fucking legit as balls. Alright, I'm just playing. I can't read shit. Get the fuck out of here. But, low-key, the fucking reward for this tournament is not that bad. That fucking Gohan. It sucks, though. It's ironic. Who would have known a day in my life where my team on Global is actually a lot better in a lot of ways, not only for tournaments, but in general, than my team on JP. I guess I'll go with Mono SDR, might as well. I mean, fuck it, that's my best team. But, yeah, Japan, I went from being the fucking top dog to now I don't give a fuck. Fuck Japan, bro. You know what they say, bro? Like Paulie Walnuts always said, word to the wise, remember Pearl Harbor. No offense, but let's be honest, they killed my blood and brethren. My goddamn fucking United States of America, goddamn it. And, speaking of death, I actually, been in a nice jutsu for the past, I don't know, maybe week with the Philando Castile court case. If you don't know, I think this happened about 4 months ago, maybe, where basically there was an African-American male driving his car. You know, he's like zoop-doop, just driving through, you know me, chilling, and he got pulled over by a police officer. Police officer's like, hey, boss, what's going on? Let me see your registration, blah, blah, blah. And the cop was like, all right, give me your registration. Now give me your ID. And then when, before Castille, like, got his ID, he's like, hey, boss, just so you know, on the low, I've got a firearm, like a legal firearm, you know, you can carry it. And the cop's like, all right, just don't pull it out. And Castille's like, all right, I'm not going to pull it out. And then he was basically reaching for his ID, and the cop says, I think one more time, don't pull it out. And then I guess the officer, he kind of got jumpy. He thought he was pulling out the gun. Your boy, Officer Yanze, pop, pop, blew it up, and he shot him fucking 8 times. And it's pretty fucking depressing, bro. I mean, honestly, this is, you know, I mean, I'll be honest, right? There's a lot of cases of quote-unquote police brutality where, you know, after you look at all the facts, it's like, all right, you know what? The cop was within his legal right to do what he did. You know, maybe someone has a gun, someone has a knife, maybe it looked like they were gonna kill him. You know, there's been cases in the past where, you know, people got upset. For example, there was someone who had, like, special needs in New York where the kid basically, he had special needs, and the cops were called there on the premise that he had a firearm. And once they got there, they told him, you know, don't move, blah, blah, blah. And then he was reaching for his pocket, so they shot him. And it ended up being that the kid had, like, a brush or something. But, I mean, the officers were told, yo, this guy might have a gun. Well, not might. They were told that he does have a gun. And then once they went on scene, he was acting, you know, jittery, so they shot him. That's one of those more of, like, cut and dry type of things. This case is very, I feel like, in my opinion, it feels like the officer was in the wrong. I mean, if not, I don't think it was anything malicious. I don't think the cop was, you know, he meant to purposely, like, nuke your boy Castille, but I think the cop was definitely not, I mean, I don't think he was competent. If you watch the video, there's actually a video of this, his dash cam footage. Not only dash cam footage, one of the reasons why this case is so, like, popular and palpable is because his wife or his girlfriend, after he got shot, literally moments after he got shot, was live streaming it on Facebook. And Castille, you know, he was shot and he was dead. And then he was like, my bad, bro, I got hoes knocking on my door every fucking day. Like I was saying, your boy, the police officer Yanze, he was video recorded, and basically everyone got to see his reaction after he shot Castille. And if you watch the video, he looks like a fucking retard. He was just standing there. He's like, I saw him reach for it. I saw him reach for it. I swear I saw him reach for it. And then he starts crying. Like, he's like sobbing. He's like, I swear he was reaching for it, blah, blah, blah. And he started, like, conversating with the woman. And, it, like, he literally, not only did he not know what he was doing in the sense that he wasn't, this is my biggest gripe with this guy and what I think he did wrong. I think that the biggest problem with what happened is that he should have said explicitly to the person in the car, don't move. Instead of saying don't reach for it, he should have said don't move. Because when he said don't reach for it, in the video you can hear the driver say, okay, I'm not going to reach for it. His intention was to get his ID. But the cop, he just says don't reach for it. There's a lot of times, especially in areas where there's, legal gun ownership, where basically, cops are like, all right, just don't, no funny business, give me your ID. And then you go on with your day. But this cop went in the fucking realm, and he's like, yo, bro, don't reach for it, and then decides to fucking shoot him. And if you watch the dash cam footage, I think you get a little bit of kind of his incompetence. I think the best one is probably the Facebook live stream video, because he's literally fucking crying, and he's like, I had to shoot him, he was reaching for it. He's like sobbing. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And now, obviously, it's bad enough with what happened, right? It's just, it's a fucking travesty. But then, your boy, the man who, it's kind of in this country, I mean, for myself, and I think for a lot of people, it's kind of a love-hate relationship a lot of times when it comes to the judicial system. I mean, it's probably my favorite branch of government, but it's also the branch of government that usually lets me down the most. Like, usually when they get W's, I'm like, ooh, they make it, W's. But then when they get L's, oh, Lord, you feel the L's, bro. When you feel the L's, you feel the L's. I mean, some of the best cases have come to the Supreme Court, and then some of the worst cases have come from the Supreme Court. I mean, historically, the Taney Court with Dred versus Scott, eventually, kind of even more recent, like with the Rehnquist era, there's kind of cases where mong. But this is, I feel like with this case, I think, I don't know, I don't want to say, the jury was, biased, but if you actually look at the Star Tribune, they did a whole thing of like who the jury was, what they thought, who these people were. Most of them were white, which is fine, I guess, but most of them were like dumb as shit. Like, they're like, hey, boss, you ever heard of this case that literally happened like 2 feet away from you that's been publicized on TV for the past couple months? No, I don't know too much about it, but I like cops and I support them. Like, legit, that's what most people said. They're like, I like cops and I support them. And I'm like, okay, all right, who doesn't support? Like, who, I mean, there's a lot of people, obviously, there's some people like, yeah, man, police trying to kill me, bro, these fucking NWA shit, but for the most part, most people support, law enforcement. It's just the fact that, like, most of these people knew nothing. Like, they were like, I don't know. I heard that, someone got shot, but I love the police. One thing that was super jutsu, one guy on the jury's like, I have family who's in law enforcement, friends in law enforcement, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm going to find it hard to not be biased in this case. And I'm like, what? I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what the fuck? This nigga, he's coming to court with his mind made up already. He's like, oop-de-doop. And what else is crazy is that, I think the dash cam footage and the live stream footage, jurors weren't allowed to see it. Like, for example, like, the footage where he was crying like a Mongo, I don't think people were allowed to see that in the courtroom. It was basically inadmissible. The judge is just like, no, we ain't bringing that here. I know the dash cam footage was, but if the dash cam footage was, I think, if I remember correctly, the Facebook footage should be too. So basically, a lot of people are upset about this. In the first place, that the officer did what he did, and then even bigger, in the second place, is that the officer got off scot-free, no charges whatsoever, not even reckless use of a firearm. And I feel like this is probably one of those harder things to do, because, I mean, there's a lot of cases where, police officers are killed or they get nuked because of the fact that they're so scared to use their weapon. It's actually pretty crazy. If you ever watch a video called, I can't remember the video. I guess I'll link it in the description, where basically there was this one cop who was caught multiple times, basically discharging his weapon or shooting at people, and they basically said, like, listen, whether it's, warranted or not, we're watching you, you better take it easy, because you do something wrong again, we're going to fire you, basically. And that is something that cops have to deal with kind of in a political realm, is that they basically have to, pay attention to how many times they shoot, how many times they kill. and basically not to, go crazy with the gun. So this cop in particular was basically reprimanded for, nuking people. He's like, yeah, bro, you're a nice guy, but goddamn, bro, you can't stop nuking people. And he's like, okay, boss, I'll try to take it easy. And he actually ends up stopping an ex-Marine, which, they're always the fucking... They're either the most patriotic people, or they're the people who are like, this country's fucked me, and I'm ready to fuck them. And the Marine, or the ex-Navy SEAL, whatever, basically was not listening to the officer, saying, fuck off, blah, blah, I don't care. And the officer's like, please stop moving. And the guy didn't listen. He's like, stop, blah, blah, blah. He didn't listen, blah, blah, blah. And up to the point, it's almost like, it's weird because you could tell the officer kind of put himself in legit, like, genjutsu. Like, he put himself in the realm where the guy went and got an AR, an assault rifle, and even up to the point of him picking up the gun and pointing it, the cop's like, yo, bro, stop, please, come on, I don't want to lose my job, low-key, come on, bro. And the guy actually put him in so much genjutsu, the guy just walked up to him and just shot him to death, which is, I mean, that cop, I mean, I don't know what I understand, like, sometimes you go into a trance, but at some point, what the fuck was he thinking? Like, holy shit, I'd be like, fuck it, fuck this job. Fuck it, if I go to jail, I go to jail, but I'm not dying today. But I guess he just went so much into the realm, he's like, yo, bro, I'm gonna lose my job. Let me find some way, somehow, if I could, stop this without nuking him. And he ended up dying, I think. If not, then he ended up obviously going to the hospital and probably undergoing surgery because he got shot a couple times with a friggin' AR. I think it was an AR-15 to be specific. Let's see. Go for this guy. Damn, bro. My OSTR is pretty good, but where the Broly at? I need Broly. Where Broly, bro? Alright, let's do that. Boom. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, this case, I'm floating on the idea that I think the officer should have gotten... I think he should have gotten manslaughter because I think he was very stupid. Like, plain and simple, he was very... I mean, he didn't understand how to articulate himself well. He said, don't pull it out as opposed to don't move. And then not only that, he didn't, not only did he not say that, but he didn't, like wait to see if he could see something. He basically didn't. He never saw the weapon. He basically just thought there was a weapon, which I guess, heat of the moment, it's not too crazy to think that, but I feel like he really, 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 really should have just said, don't move at all, as opposed to, don't pull it out and then shooting him. And I also think that the officer was not competent just to work the job in general, because he ended up crying, not even when he's off the scene, 2 seconds later, he ended up crying, I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy's retarded. And not only that, even the things he said in court were really stupid, things that, it reminded me of the Trayvon Martin case, when that Mong Zimmerman was saying weird shit. He was, I remember Zimmerman at one point said some, funky stuff. He was in an interview, and he's like, God put me there. God put Trayvon there, this is God's will, blah, blah, basically saying that his murder was, God's will, and, that's a really weird thing to say, you know what I mean? Because I think the context, too, is when he asks is, do you feel bad about this? And he's like, no, it's God's will, which is kind of freaky-deaky. And then with this one, this guy, he went in the realm, he's like, this guy, Philandro, he's driving, he's got his girlfriend, he's got his kid in the backseat. That's another thing that's fucked up, his kid was in the backseat, I think she was 4. What do you call it? She was 4, and what else? Oh yeah, Mongo in the statement either in court or afterwards said, this guy smoked marijuana in front of his wife and kid. If he doesn't care about them, then he surely doesn't care about me. And it's such a dumb thing to say. It's so stupid. Are you serious, dude? Don't say that. Just be quiet. Just say, I thought he was a threat based off of the information provided, and I believe the reason why he stopped him is because initially he believed that he looked familiar, from a robbery of some sort. But I mean, even if that is the case, he was complying with the officer. He was acting normal. It wasn't anything he's like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? It's not like he wasn't complying. Overall, a pretty shitty situation. I mean, I understand most cases, a lot of times with Black Lives Matter, for example, they kind of almost, no matter what happens, they always kind of side with the victim. Not to say that obviously everyone who dies usually is a victim, but there's some cases where it seemed like it was force that was necessary on the officer's part. For example, Mike Brown from the court proceedings, it pretty much was revealed that he had his hand on the gun. He was like trying to beat up the officer. Even before that, earlier than that, he was, I think he was robbing a store or something. I know he did some crime, which, I mean, for that context where he's like trying to pull the officer's gun away, then obviously, I mean, it's something that he had to do. It's not something that he could avoid. But with this, I mean, he was a good guy. He seemed like a, stand-up citizen. He had a right to carry. He didn't do anything funky. I mean, literally all he did was when the cop said don't pull it out, he went to pull out his ID, and then he ended up getting shot. I mean, this is the thing, like, you almost want to say, like, oh my god, like, it's almost like a freak accident in a way, where it's like, oh my god, like, how could that happen? That's kind of why the manslaughter charge exists. That's like, manslaughter, usually you get that when, like, you accidentally run someone over. You didn't mean it, but, in certain cases where you may be at fault to some degree from incompetence or something you did wrong, you usually get the manslaughter charge. And I think for this, there shouldn't be any difference, but, obviously there's a bias. I think a lot of times when people talk about this, they talk about how saying black lives don't matter, blah, blah, blah. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think in most cases, if a police officer does something to anyone, usually there's, there is, a little bit of special treatment. There's a little bit of, like, I mean, not even special treatment to say that, his department, doesn't fire him. For example, in this case, they're like, we're not going to fire you, but you are going to have to resign. You know what I mean? That funky thing. But there, special treatment in the guise of the law, because he is a police officer. He does have to go through that, process of basically dealing with people and dealing with danger. So there's that, there are certain, judicial precedents. But I think for this case, I think it was a bit, I don't know, I don't want to say a mistake of the justice system, although I'm leaning towards that. But I definitely think that if I'm going to say one's right, one's wrong, I would probably say the officer's wrong in this regard, just because he's incompetent. He really was, like, legit. The fact, like, anytime, like, when I was younger, I was worried about employment. Like, am I going to get a job? Am I going to do well? Listen, the fact that that guy exists and he somehow got a job, even of power, just goes to show there's a place for everyone. So there you go. There's a little bit of positivity. All right, there may be some problems in this nation, but at least you could get from this that if he could be a mong and be employed, then you can too. So there you go. A little bit of positivity. All I got to say is I can't wait until Global's World Tournament, because I actually have Broly on my Global. So, low-key fuck JP. Although, this furry guy's pretty handsome. So, that's about it. Pretty legit. And remember, hands up, don't shoot.